Hey everybody, welcome back to part two of our conversation with Rob Brown, the Canadian author of Wealthing Like Rabbits. As promised in this part, Rob continues on, and basically what we do is we sort of get down into the dirt about how to build wealth. And of course we reference his book. It's really interesting because Rob does a lot of speaking engagements, or did a lot of speaking engagements pre-COVID at schools, universities, and of course corporate business events and so on and so forth. And as you'll see in the video here in our conversation, there was one particular person down at Holland College in Charlottetown, PEI, where he made a real difference in a young guy's life. So stay tuned. Remember that we are not professional financial planners or investment counselors. We are just in simple conversation with Rob Brown, the Canadian author of Wealthing Like Rabbits, and you're going to enjoy it just like you enjoyed part one. Stay tuned. Here we go with part two, and I'll be back at the end.
So investments, retirement's done. Now what we're trying to do is figure out how to build wealth with a side hustle.
And I saw your post. I don't know whether it was on Danter Banter, great name by the way, and or whether or not it was on Hair Curlers Chronicle. That name needs some work. I saw your post on buying the occasional thing on Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji and fixing it up and reselling it. And you were absolutely right. You'll probably never support a family doing that. But if it's something you enjoy and it's a hobby you can develop and you can side hustle off that hobby, then I just think that's fantastic. We've done some of that. You know, when we're at the cottage and we need something to do, we'll fix something up and sell it. And, you know, ever since COVID hit, my speaking tour came to an abrupt end. So, you know, I've been making some online whiteboard videos for colleges and universities, just a skill I could teach myself to do to keep busy and that sort of thing. And there's certainly not the same profit in that as there was in public speaking, but nevertheless, it's fun to do. It's just keeping yourself busy and making a little bit of a side hustle is a fun way to go about it.
Yeah, you know, and Tim and I love having a project together. It gives, well, we do.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Glenn and I are the same way.
So Rob, when you get feedback from your book, like from readers and that, is there one particular chapter that seems to resonate the most with a reader?
Sure, and the best part, hands down, of this entire journey, and I just tipped on the iceberg of some of the stuff I've done, is when I get feedback from people who have read the book. When out of the blue a tweet or an email comes to me, that's just about as good as it gets. And there's two chapters that really have stood out over all the others. The first one is the first chapter that I mentioned, Choices with Lisa. And again, the chapter that I was most hesitant about, didn't really want to do that. That's been the best received chapter, hand down. And the second one was the Mario Mortgage, the chapter on mortgages and housing, and where I lead in the whole housing piece. Because so many young people that I talk to, and you have to understand, I'm at 40 to 50 colleges and universities every year. That's a lot of young people. And a lot of them grew up in households where their mom and dads have made the mistake of the first Lisa. And later in the book, I allude to, you know, the fact that the stress and the divorce rate that money problems can cause. You have no idea how many kids would come up to me or email me and say, I will not make the same mistakes as my parents made. Thank you for writing this book. And that's really as good as it gets. I was in Charlottetown. Oh, I'll tell you my Charlottetown story. This is a good story. I went to Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, the nicest city in Canada, arguably. And I was speaking at Holland College, a small little college in Charlottetown. And Belinda and I had actually drove out. I was speaking at Holland College. I was speaking at Dal in Nova Scotia. I was speaking at 4 schools on the East Coast over a 2-week period. So we made a little vacation out of it. But when we got to Charlottetown, a day before I was supposed to speak, and the deal I had made with the school was, as part of my speaking event, I was going to give them 100 copies of the book signed, and that was part of the deal. I had to bring them with me. And I didn't want to go to give the speech today and then carry in 4 cases of books, right? So I said, listen, we're here early. I'm going to run over to the college and drop the books off a day before the event because we weren't far from there. And I went over to the college and I found the student association. It was done through the student association. And you walk in the student association, and if you could picture the stereotypical little old lady from Prince Edward Island, you got her in your mind? That's the woman that was behind the desk, eh? And so I walk in and I've got a cart. I've got these cases of books. And I said, "Hi, I'm Rob Brown, and I'm here to drop off some books. I'm speaking here tomorrow." And this lady looks at me and she says, "So you're the famous author who's coming to speak tomorrow?" And I'm like, I'll fool myself. Well, you know, I don't know how famous I am, but yeah, I'm the guy that I'm Mr. Brown. I'm coming to speak tomorrow. And she looks at me and she says, "You know, I just love the Da Vinci Code." Dead serious, most humbling moment of my entire life. I laughed and I laughed. But the next day, I went and I gave my speech to the kids at Holland College. And as I was about 10 minutes away from wrapping up, this young man, he wasn't a kid, he comes in the back door, big kid, 24, 25, over 6 feet tall, athlete guy. And he's just kind of standing off on the side. Right? Okay, that's cool. And I finished my speech and I answered a few questions. And this guy's waiting, obviously, for me. And I finished up and I answered some questions. I signed some books and shook my hand. And this big kid comes up to me, 25 years of age, and he says, "Mr. Brown, I heard you were coming here today. I wanted to come and thank you. I read your book about a year ago, and at the time I had a lot of credit card debt, and I owed a lot of money to Mr. Payday, a payday loan place out in PEI.
Yeah.
And over the last year, I've been paying off that debt, and I just finished paying off all of it last week, and I don't think I'd have done it if I hadn't read your book." And this big kid, 25 years of age, reaches forward, doesn't shake my hand, gives me a great big bear hug. Like,
Wow.
that's as good as it gets, you know. And I always think about that. And I still get emails. I still get, you know, tweets from people who have read the book, and the vast majority of it is overwhelmingly positive. So that's hands down the best part of the experience.
No, it's totally true. And I'm going to refer to my friend Debbie again. She tells me she's with an organization where she's helping young people. And she said, and even some older people. And she said, it's funny the amount of people that don't even understand compound interest. Like, they don't understand what happens to them with the debt. It's compound interest in reverse, as per your book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
don't understand what that can do for you or for them. Like, you could have thought, like I would have said that Tim and I, it felt like it was hopeless. If you went back to 2000, even 2010, I thought it's hopeless. We're not going to be able to retire. I'll be working till I'm 85 years old, probably a Walmart greeter, because I'd be good at that. Hello. But, you know, nobody understands the power of that compound interest until you actually do it. And then once you do it, it becomes addicting. Addicting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased that people are so reactive to your book, because I don't think people understand it. They just have no idea.
What's your follow-up to this book?
Yeah. Tell us.
That's a great question. If you'd have asked me about a year and a half ago, I was thinking at that time of a sequel. But if I'm honest with myself, I don't think I'll ever write a sequel. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, this book continues to sell well. I've been lucky enough that it's become part of these. There's about 10 or 12 personal finance books in Canada that just sell, you know, consistently well. And, you know, I'm no David Chilton and I'm no Gail Vaz Oxlade, but, you know, my book continues to sell 500 to 1,000 copies a month in Chapters, Indigo, Amazon, Kobo, Kindle, the ebook, the Audible, and my own website. So I'm not sure that another book would perform as well. And I don't have a full book in me. I'd be writing it because I felt I should write a sequel, not because I was as committed to it as I was the first book. What I might do is I might re-release this book a second edition and put 2 or 3 more chapters in it and upgrade it and update it, because it's 6 years old now. And some of the information in it, while while philosophically still correct, some of the technicalities in the book have changed as legislation's changed and that sort of thing.
What would you see? I mean, that's a great idea, a second release of it. And I don't know if there's any value in somehow tying it back to lessons learned and the pickles people got themselves in over COVID.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's funny because as COVID hit, I think if we're objective, and everybody's situation is different, and I never want to judge anybody's situation, but it really did reinforce how important the fundamentals of personal finance are, that, those people who went into this situation without any debt and some sort of emergency fund are obviously going to be in a lot better shape than those who went into this with massive mortgages and big credit card debt and so on and so forth. So those fundamentals, I think, are just so reinforced.
There's two books, Rob, that I wish. I mean, when I went through college, I went through George Brown College, downtown Toronto, for furniture production and design. I was a wood finisher, and I got out of that, and long story, got into driver training. Had an opportunity to buy the franchises for Young Drivers of Canada for Oakville and Milton initially, and I was a businessman. Boom. My parents had passed away. I inherited a house, as I said before, 18% interest rate. But I wish I had read two books. Well, and I wish I had read them early on in life. I wish they were there. One is yours, because it made a whole bunch of sense, because as we got the fever from making so much money, we started to become your characters. And the second one I wish I'd read was The Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish
when I was,
because I probably would be in a different place right now, a much different place. Not to say that I'm not in a place that I don't want to be in, because I have got a wealth of experience behind me from those lessons.
Yeah. When I was a 20-something, I read, the iconic Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. And I like to joke that Dave Chilton inadvertently changed my life twice, in that I read The Wealthy Barber when I was in my 20s. I never bought it. I had a roommate whose mother gave it to him, and I stole it. I like to joke I owed David Chilton $8. But it made so much sense to me when I read it, and I bought in. When I was in my 20s, I opened an RSP and started putting money into it. And there's just no way that would have happened if he hadn't wrote that book and I hadn't read the book. And when I went to open that RSP at the ripe old age of like 28 or 29, the bank manager couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe that somebody was coming into that age to open an RSP. And he didn't try and talk me out of it, but he wondered if I knew what I was doing. And obviously that worked out long term. And the other reason I say Dave Chilton in some ways changed my life is because when I wrote my book, I wrote it aimed at young people, because I didn't feel that millennials, the late teen through 35 crowd, was very well represented by personal finance books in Canada, which is the age I was when I read his book. And when I wrote mine, I reached out to Dave and said, hey, I kind of wrote this book, can you give me some advice? And he took like an hour on the phone with me, telling me all kinds of ways to market the book. And Nancy, I'm not afraid to try new ideas and marketing stuff. And David gave me a whole bunch of ideas on top of it. And it was really, really helpful. He's the real deal. He's a very nice, sincere, helpful guy, and he helped me out a lot. So, yeah, that was the big book when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I read that book too. It was so long ago. I don't know if I remember it quite the same way. I actually had to rebuy your book.
Excellent.
Because our daughter got a hold of it, and she has it, and she reads it every year too. So she loves it. Like, she loves it. And so I'm never getting that one back. I have a feeling next time I see you, I need you to re-sign I need you to sign a new copy. What the heck is Wealthing Like Rabbits? Maybe you should just give us what the title actually means, because I know what it means, but maybe we'll hear what you make.
Well, sure. The title Wealthing Like Rabbits was actually a fellow co-worker that I used to work with came up with the title. But the title is taking two ideas from inside the book and mashing them together. So I talk about compound interest and how much money can grow upon itself year after year after year, given enough time. And I use a lot of anecdotes and pop culture references to teach finance in the book. And I tell the story, the true story, of what happened to the Australian rabbit population when a farmer there introduced 24 rabbits to Australia, where previously there were 0 rabbits. Rabbits are not indigenous to the Australian continent. And 60 years later, there was over 10 billion rabbits in Australia. So I use that story to show how powerful numbers can be when they start growing upon themselves. So that's where the like rabbits piece comes from. And the wealthing part comes from this notion that I think that sometimes we use the word saving terribly. And we'll say that we went out and bought a new big screen TV on sale and it was $400 off. So I saved $400. You didn't save anything. Maybe you paid $400 less than you would have paid otherwise, but you still paid X number of dollars for a TV. You didn't save a cent. So I suggest that we should come up with a new word, a new verb called wealthing. And any wealthing you do is really saving because it contributes to your overall net wealth. So if you take and sell something on Facebook Marketplace for $150 and put that away in your RSP for later on, you wealthed that money. So it gives us a new way to talk about it and a new way to think about it. And I took those two ideas together and mashed them together for the title.
Well, Rob, you are amazing. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been really great to catch up with you.
So, Rob, where can folks go to get this book? Obviously, Amazon. Did you mention that it's now you've made it an Audible book?
Yeah, it's available on Audible if you want the audio book, and you can get it through all the usual retail sources, Chapters, Indigo, when they open, Chapters online, Amazon online. If somebody out there wants a signed copy, they can buy it directly through my website at wealthinglike.rabbits.com. And if I get the order, I'll actually sign it, sort of thing. And it's available in e-format too, through Kobo and Kindle and Google Books and everything like that. If there's anybody out there that is a manager or something of a company and they're looking for a corporate deal, reach out to me directly, Rob at wealthinglike.rabbits.com.
It's just a terrific read, and it's a grounding experience to self-check yourself.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. I really do.
And you taught me how to get myself back on track, and you didn't even realize I needed that. So, appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for reaching out.
That brings part 2 to an end. I want to thank Rob Brown for taking the time to have a conversation with Nancy and I. His book was very inspirational, and even, it doesn't matter how old you are and how successful you are, it's always good to always sort of ground yourself and go back to the basics and to have those subtle reminders, which Rob does in his book Wealthing Like Rabbits. So thank you, Rob, for that. It was really enjoyable, and it's really interesting to see where and how the name came up, because you kind of think about it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and it's all relatable. So again, you can reach out to Rob through his email at rob@wealthinglike.rabbits.com. His books are available at audio.com, Kobo, Kindle, Google Books, Amazon. Strongly suggest that you get it. It is one of the best books that I've read. And I'm sure you will enjoy it. So again, folks, thanks for tuning in. If you're getting any value and use and worthiness out of our channels, please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming video releases. Anyway, thanks again to Rob for taking the time. His book, Wealthing Like Rabbits, Canadian written, Canadian content, and supporting our Canadian authors. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Have a great day.